When Kelly Ripa first started hosting Live with Regis and Kelly, she was known for being a bright and bubbly carefree TV host. But as her fame grew, so did her ego.
It's scary when someone you love is angry with you.
And now her husband, Mark Consuelos, is revealing just how toxic she's become. Kelly just started her podcast, Let's Talk Off Camera with Kelly Ripa. In her first episode, Kelly decided that it would be a good idea to speak on the topic of surviving marriage. Kelly has been married to Mark Consuelos for about 27 years, so if anyone knows a thing or two about surviving marriage, it's probably them. Plus, she brought in their marriage counselor for some expert insight. And both Mark and the marriage counselor revealed just how toxic Kelly really is.
When we would be in an argument, but we would be in a public place, and I was trying to, melt the chill.
One of the craziest things that they revealed in their podcast is just how difficult Kelly and Mark's relationship has been over the years. For years, Kelly and Mark wanted everyone to think that they were a perfect couple. But behind the scenes, Kelly was secretly torturing Mark with some pretty horrible behavior. When they would fight, instead of trying to work through it, Kelly would just completely shut down. And if they were on the phone, she would hang up on him and then go days without speaking to him. When you think about it, it's honestly pretty insane that they managed to stay together through that, because it doesn't sound like it was easy for Mark. Luckily, they got their marriage counselor involved, or I don't know if they would have made it. Kelly said that she had to learn to take a time out instead of just completely cutting Mark out, but it doesn't sound like she's actually learned all that much, because she admitted that she's still doing this, but with her own children.
I'm currently not speaking to 2 of my 3 kids right now.
And worse yet, Mark admitted that Kelly actually uses the timeouts as another way to be toxic. According to Mark, Kelly would say things to trigger him and then call a timeout, trying to bring the conversation to an end after she had said her own piece. Apparently, Kelly had a knack for dropping a bombshell during a conversation and then hitting the timeout button, just so that Mark couldn't actually say anything back to her, which has to be extremely annoying for Mark.
I've never heard you actually cop to knowing that it's really bad.
But this was really just the beginning of their issues. It sounds like this has been going on since the beginning of their marriage. Kelly talked about what their marriage was like when they had their first son, Michael, and it doesn't sound like they handled it very well at all. Kelly said that when she had her first son, Michael, she became very bitter towards Mark. And the reason Kelly gave for this was that she felt like her life had taken a complete 180-degree turn, almost like she'd been thrown into this new world. And she had to navigate through it all on her own with barely any help, while on the other hand, life went on as usual for Mark. Mark just kept on living his normal life always. According to Kelly, he would go to work, hang out with his friends, and even enjoy a night out or a vacation like he didn't have a baby. And to her, it seemed like they were in different worlds, even though Mark also made himself available to help out. But somehow Kelly couldn't let go of the resentment that Mark seemed to be living a different and much better life than she was. And even now, over 25 years later, it seems like Kelly is still resentful of Mark. You would think that the resentment would be gone by now, seeing as all their children are grown up and Kelly and Mark have had couples counseling, but it seems like it stuck around. She brought it up on the podcast almost immediately, before she even introduced Mark as a guest. It was seriously crazy, and we've all seen just how resentful Kelly can be over the years. We all saw just how bitter she was when Michael Strahan left Live out of nowhere. She literally stopped showing up for work for a week, and she even recently spoke out about how she and Regis didn't exactly get along, even though he passed away years ago, and he left Live years before that. It's been a pattern with Kelly to be bitter and resentful with anyone, but Mark has definitely been on the other end of it more than anyone else, and he had no problem talking about another one of Kelly's seriously toxic traits, her horrible communication. You would think that someone whose literal career is a TV host would be better at communicating, right? But no, apparently Kelly will say one thing and mean something else entirely. According to Mark, he learned that when he gets a yes from Kelly, it doesn't always mean yes. Sometimes, if not most times, a yes from Kelly really means a no. Apparently, she says the opposite and then hopes or even expects Mark to know what she actually means. And somehow, that's not everything that she puts Mark through when it comes to her toxic behavior. According to Kelly herself, every year, for the first few months of the year, she's constantly in a horrible mood. In her own words, during the first few months of the year, she wants to fire everyone, quit her job, and burn her house to the ground. Eventually, they figured out that Kelly was dealing with seasonal depression, which is pretty crazy. You would never guess that just watching her on TV every day. There are definitely times where she doesn't seem like she's in a great mood, but I don't think any of us would guess just how much darkness is lurking below the surface when it comes to Kelly's behavior. It's crazy that she and Mark have been able to make their marriage work for this long, when it definitely seems like she's put him through a lot over the years. And even more crazy was what she said after the podcast, because as much as they admit on the podcast, it seems like people had a lot of opinions about how she treated him on the podcast. Even though they were supposedly talking about how they worked through most of their issues, people were quick to notice that Kelly constantly interrupted Mark on the podcast. She barely let him get a word in, and now that they're hosting Live with Kelly and Mark together, I'm sure that this is only the beginning of the world getting to witness their marriage issues firsthand. But now they're on display every day for the world to see. Hopefully they can make it through, because it can't be easy to work with your spouse every day, and it's probably even more difficult when the whole world is watching. And now that we know just how much they've been struggling since the literal beginning of their marriage, it's even more insane watching them work together every day while also being married. But what do you guys think about all this? Are Kelly and Mark's issues just normal marriage problems, or is her toxic behavior seriously shocking to you? Let me know in the comments below.